When the World Stopped, but Responsibilities Continued, a research study by Katharine HarperWilliams. This presentation will include a little bit about me, a background to the study, research questionnaire, method, results, discussion and a take-home message. A little bit about me. I'm in my final year studying on the MSc Counselling course at Bangor University. I have a background in community development and social research. I'm local to North Wales, having worked mainly on Anglesey and Gwynedd. I conducted this research in 2001 when COVID-19 restrictions were still in force, though lifting slowly. At the time, I was a full-time student at Bangor, a mother and a carer for my husband. A background. In 2020, the World Health Organization declared a national pandemic related to COVID-19, which then saw 2 years of isolation and restrictive measures as governments attempted to learn more about the disease and how to manage it. This included at times the requirement for many childcare facilities to close and isolation from other households where support may otherwise have been gained. COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by the SARS virus. Early in the pandemic, Usher et al. 2020 wrote about the increase of anxiety among the general population. They described feelings of alarm and of being unsafe. As isolation laws were introduced, we saw a shift to remote working for many people. An interesting study by Bertoni et al. 2022 found that remote working had a negative effect for many workers. A study by Richer et al. 2021 noted an increase globally in demand for mental health services during the time of the pandemic. A study by Skovholt and Ronestad 2003 highlighted therapists are a high-risk group for burnout and emotional exhaustion. But what does this mean? This means that counsellors who worked during the pandemic were predominantly forced to work remotely at a time of great uncertainty and increased need for mental health services. As a group already identified as being high risk to burnout, I was interested to explore how the change to remote working affected other therapists, in particular those with additional caring responsibilities. The study aimed to explore whether specific factors had led to an increase in the burnout levels of counselling practitioners during the COVID pandemic. So these factors included whether remote training had been received, whether practitioners also had caring responsibilities in their home life, and for those relevant, the support level they received while caring. The study had an independent measures design. The dependent variable was burnout level, and independent variables were caring responsibilities, remote training received or whether it had been received, and whether support had been received. I had 3 hypotheses. The first hypothesis was that levels of burnout would be higher among counsellors who work during the COVID pandemic, in addition to managing caring responsibilities. The second hypothesis was that counsellors who worked through the COVID-19 pandemic, having received remote therapy training, will report lower levels of burnout. The third hypothesis was that participants with caring responsibilities who reported having received support will report lower levels of burnout. The method. So the target population, we wanted counsellors and psychotherapists who had worked through the COVID pandemic. They needed to be aged 18 plus and having predominantly been based in the UK. There was no exclusion criteria related to gender, ethnicity or nationality. Participants were excluded if they did not complete substantial parts of the questionnaire. Participant recruitment. 104 participants were recruited using opportunity sampling. Information and links to the study were shared on social media with focus on counselling forums. Emails were sent to all students and alumni of the MSc Counselling course at Bangor University. Emails were also sent to all therapeutic contacts currently working with the MSc Counselling course at Bangor, and an advert was placed with the BACP Research Notice Board. Resources. A quantitative Qualtrics questionnaire was used, combining the Copenhagen Burnout Inventory by Christensen et al. 2005 with a demographic questionnaire designed by the research team. The Copenhagen Burnout Inventory is a Likert scale questionnaire which focuses on 3 forms of burnout: physical-related, work-related, and client-related. When that's completed, a mean burnout score can be calculated. The demographics looked for information on factors including gender, caring responsibilities, and training received. In addition to the questionnaire, participants also received an information sheet, consent form, and debrief. Approval and ethical considerations. Approval was gained from the Bangor University School of Psychology, Ethics and Governance Committee. An information sheet was given explaining the purpose and nature of the study. Links were given to external support organisations. Informed consent was given by participants, as was the right to withdraw, and participant data was kept securely on a password-protected OneDrive system, then later deleted. So if we look at the results here, you'll see that we had 104 participants. There's a fairly even split between those who had caring responsibilities and those who didn't. However, if we look at gender, there were more female participants compared to any other gender. If we look at type of burnout recorded, predominantly 49% of participants reported work-related burnout, and then there's a fairly even split again between client burnout and physical burnout. So what you're seeing here is the large blue section there is non-carers, which were 53%. Then the orange section there, the next largest one, is that 17% of people were caring for their own child, and 14% there ticked that they had multiple caring responsibilities. Around 3/4 of participants stated that they received remote therapy training. If we look at the breakdown of participant burnout level collected using the Copenhagen Burnout Inventory, you'll see that participants with the highest mean score on burnout were carers with no support, followed by carers who had not received remote therapy training. Participants with the lowest level mean score for burnout were non-carers who had received remote therapy training and non-carers with support. However, if we look at hypothesis 1, the levels of burnout will be higher among counsellors who work during the COVID pandemic in addition to managing caring responsibilities. When a standard deviation test was run, we saw that there was no significant difference, and therefore the hypothesis was not supported. With hypothesis 2, counsellors who worked through the COVID-19 pandemic, having received remote therapy training, will report lower levels of burnout. Again, despite the mean, when we ran the standard deviation test, again, the hypothesis was not supported. In the final hypothesis, participants with caring responsibilities who reported having received support will report lower levels of burnout. Again, despite the mean, When we ran the standard deviation test, we saw there was no significant difference, and the hypothesis 3 was also not supported. Discussion. The data does not support either of the three hypotheses. Although there was no significant difference in burnout levels between the groups, the levels were still high. Potentially a larger participant group may be needed with improved gender split. For example, Bertoni et al. 2022 found that burnout levels in remote workers were higher in women due to the higher proportion who care for children. Alternatively, a qualitative element may have been beneficial to capture a truer picture of reality. It could be that due to the new skills that people developed, some participants developed in working remotely, that boosted a sense of achievement. This is based on Yusof et al. 2013. Also, there may have been benefits to remote working. So, for example, therapists were no longer restricted geographically to the clients that they could work with, or potentially if a client did not attend, they would not have necessarily travelled out to see that client. There was a problematic question because 23 participants without caring responsibilities answered a question on whether they had had support with their caring responsibilities. And also it brings to question whether remote therapy training is worth it when it comes to burnout levels and reducing that. The take-home message from this study is that people can achieve amazing things, even in the most challenging circumstances. Remote therapy training may be useful, but not in terms of reducing burnout. Whether we have caring responsibilities or not, sometimes we need support. Thank you very much for listening today.